And go.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun here. We are going to be finishing up working on the bow saw. Well, not finishing up, I'm going to be doing the majority of the work to make it kind of pretty. We're going to be doing some of the detail and smoothing and making the head slightly smaller. And next time we're going to be doing some carving and the finishing on it. So hopefully in the next video it will be completely done. But today we're actually going to be doing the chamfering and the general shaping of it, getting it ready for sharpening. But before we jump into that, let's get into some of what is going on in Wood by Wright. And before I go into that, Aldi has their chisels, which if you ever watch Paul Sellers, this is something that he recommends. They're a good starter chisel. Are they the best chisel in the market? No. The steel quality is relatively good, but the big thing is that it's $6.99 for an entire set. Now, if you're in the UK, you might be out of luck because now they've changed them up to a plastic handle, and I really don't like them as much. And even Paul Sellers has pulled away his recommendation for them. But here in the US, you can still buy the wooden handle kind. And so for $7, you just can't go wrong. I'm not a huge fan of the handles. They're just kind of clunky and they don't feel really good. But for a beginner, this is a phenomenal deal, and they're good chisels. I like the shape on them, and they're actually my go-to regular everyday chisel. So if you want to find those, you can go to Aldi. Yes, Aldi as in the grocery store, and you can pick those up there. So I went and picked up 3, and there's still 6 sets there. And if those sets are still there later this week, I'll probably go back and get those because they make great gifts. So yeah. Upcoming events. I am going to be at the Midwest Tool Collectors National Meet in Iowa. This is this month, the 27th and 29th, which I haven't heard. Are you going to be there, babe?
I don't know. They need to give me maybe a little bit more incentive. It's works kid stuff.
So if you want to see Sarah there, let her know in the chat. And I have to get that sent in tomorrow, so we'll have to make a decision.
Okay, you guys got to make a case for it then.
Yes. So I did set up a meetup. If you're going to be coming to the actual event, then great. I would love to see you there. And if you're in the area, you really should go to the event because it is like the best place in the entire world to buy hand tools by far. Biggest selection you will see anywhere on the planet of hand tools will be in Rapid City, Iowa at the end of this month. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, not Rapid City, sorry. And I will be doing a meetup at the Starbucks. It's just down the road. It's 4801 First Avenue Northeast. And there's a standalone Starbucks right there. Starbucks actually ends up being a fairly good place to do meetups. So I'll be doing that Thursday, the 27th at 5 p.m. Probably be there until around 6:30 or so. So if you want to come and say, hey, looking forward to seeing that. And if you want to see my wife there, let her know. Other things coming up in October, we're going to be doing an event, a Midwest Tool Collectors event down in Austin, Texas. And I will also be doing a dovetail class. I'll be teaching how to make dovetails freehand with a jig and possibly even doing half-blind dovetails, depending upon what the crowd wants to do. So that'll be a fun day. I'm hoping to have information on it here soon. I'm just waiting on the guy who's organizing it to get that to me. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And then Makers Central in May. I'll be in the UK, so I'm looking forward to seeing some people there. And yeah, life has been funny. We've been fun getting things all over the place.
Okay, can you do me a favor before you go any further?
What's that?
Can you see if you can crisp up the video just?
Am I out of focus? I'm sorry.
Well, you know me and glasses. That's why I was like cleaning them 5 times because I wasn't sure if it was my glasses or the video.
Let me see. Is that better? Okay, there we go. Yes, so let's actually get into the turning saw. Now what I've done on this is so far I've actually, I went and cleaned up this side of it. So I shaped this just to get my mindset in the right place and show you basically what we're doing. Let me switch over to the other camera and give you a little closer view of what I'm going to be doing. Now I've departed from the design, and if you do want to follow along with this build, I am detailing every step of it, and you can actually get the plans from Tools for Working Wood. This is a Gramercy Tools bow saw kit. And it comes with the blades and the pieces of hardware, and then you can actually get the patterns to make these. And I've changed quite a few things on here. One of the things I'm going to do on here is I'm not going to round this out. I actually want a nice chamfer. I want the chamfer to actually continue around onto the arms as well as the stretcher. Just making it a little simpler. In the future, I'm going to do a little bit of carving that stretches into here, possibly a little star carving down here. And then I'm going to do kind of like oh, you guys can't even see that. I'm sorry. Ooh, let's bring that down a little bit. There you go. Helps if I look at the camera. So we're going to be doing some carving in the joint here, a little bit down at the foot. And then up here we're going to do like a violin spiral at the top. This is where the ropes connect onto. But for tonight, what we're actually doing is we're creating the chamfer on the beam and down the arm. And so a chamfer on a beam like this is fairly easy. You can just run a planer along that corner. But what do you do on this where it curves and it shapes up? How do you actually shape that chamfer? And then we're also going to be tapering this down. So rather than it being, it's about 7/8 of an inch thick here, we're going to taper it down to a 1/2 inch here. So we're going to start with that tapering, and then we're going to go into the chamfering of the beam, and then the finishing chamfering on the rest of this. Now, I've done some of it just to save on time, but we'll be hitting a lot more of it here soon. So let's actually start by tapering this down. We want it to be about 7/8 here all the way down to 1/2 inch or so here. And what I've done, let me pull this out, is I've set up a mortising gauge here, and the mortising gauge has 2 pins. Those are a set distance away from the fence. And I have it set up on here so that it is, the 2 pins are a 1/2 inch apart. Zoom in just a little bit more here for you. There we go. The 2 pins are a 1/2 inch apart. And so when I put it on here, what I can do is put 2 dimple marks in from one end. I'm going to rotate it over and put them on the other side. And these 2 dimple marks, just want to make sure they're close together. Those 2 dimple marks then tell me what I need to plane down to. So I want to actually take off about a 1/4 inch on this side and about a 1/4 inch on this side, actually a little less on the other side, until I hit those marks. So let's clamp this up in the vise and start planing it. Any questions before I get running on this?
Not yet.
Not yet. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in there, and Sarah will mention them. And if she doesn't mention them, then go ahead and post them again. Or if you can put like a blue dot or some big notifier at the beginning that says, hey, this is a question.
Or even question. Can't find a blue dot.
Move this around, give you a little bit better shot. There we go. Now I've clamped this up so that, it's up about a 1/4 inch off the surface here. And when I put the pressure out here, it's not going to rotate this down. And so it's kind of a weird pinching shape to do this, and you can see how I was actually moving in and out until I got the right spot where I could actually clamp it down. What I want to do is start out here at the end, and I'm going to take off just a little bit. Oop, I didn't get it quite hard enough. It slid on me. There we go. I do it just a little bit up here at the end, and every time I stroke it, I'm going to come back a little farther and a little farther and a little farther until I'm somewhere around in this archway here. I actually kind of enjoy this work, and I'm watching here. Let's see if I can zoom in and show you this a little bit better. There we go. You can see that. I'm actually watching here the marker lines I have here on the edge, and I'm watching those to make sure I disappear. And that's where the slant is starting. And I'm also going to look down here on the end and see how close I am. A little bit more than 1/8 away from those dots, which is right about where I want to be. Here you can see my line is back to about here. I want to take the line all the way back to around there. A little bit more. There, so we've taken it right into that archway there, and I'm pretty close to those dots. I'm going to take just off a little bit more. It slid down a little bit on me. Just a little bit more down the tip here, and then one stroke from one end to the other just to get a nice smooth surface without sliding it. Just like that. There. And now we're actually right on those dots. Let me flip this around and see if you can see these dots. Focus. There we go. So on these dots here, you can see there's one dot right there on the edge, and there's another dot down in here. Hopefully you can see those. So now we've planed from here all the way down to that dot. We're going to turn around and plane from the other side to that dot. Second verse, same as the first. I don't know why I like saying that, but I do like saying that. clamp it down in here. Now on this side, I don't have the marker marks on here, so I just kind of eyeball it. Any questions yet?
Yes, Can Do has a question. James, when you make those chamfers that you like so much, do you smooth the corners a bit or leave them crisp? I'm thinking of the feel of the tool in the hand.
In my hand, I will dull the corners ever so slightly. So there's one very, very fine, plain pass. Just enough so it feels good. But I like to leave them still fairly crisp. I like that sharp crisp. Like these corners are actually really sharp. But because they're 45 degree, they're not like a cutting edge of a perfect 90-degree corner. So it's really not that much of a problem. And your hand is naturally going to smooth it out a little bit over time. So I don't do too much to make it that way. Having that sharp corner does give it a little more friction. But yes, I do like my chamfers. A little bit more. Let's see how we're looking. There we go, right on that dot. Let's one more good pass. There we go. So now we've thinned out the end of this head so that it's down to about a 1/2 inch here. And we're going to end up thinning it out even more with a little bit of chamfering, and then when we actually get the carving, it'll thin out even more. And we just want to make this as lightweight as possible. I could take out far more material. This is actually far stronger than it needs to be. And the lighter you make it, the easier it is to work with a saw. But the lighter you make it, the better chance that it's going to break sometime in the future. Yeah, so next thing is the beam itself. Now I've chamfered 3 of the 4 corners on it, and I need to chamfer the 4th corner. So I figured I would save that and show you that. Basically, I'll just clamp it here in the vise. I'll have it poking up most of the way. So it's 2/3 or so up and 1/3 down in. And then I'm going to grab a block plane, and I'm actually going to let the block plane ride on the jaw of the vise here. I'll hold it about 45 and then plane. I'll just do this down until I've met my marks. Oh, I forgot, I didn't tell you that. I have this gauge set up with a 1/4 inch away from the fence, and I put a mark on here, and then I put a mark on here, and I'm going to plane back to those tiny little marks. I doubt you're going to be able to see those. Some people like to pencil their lines. I've never noticed a need for that personally, but for videos it makes it a lot easier. Take off a little bit more here in the middle.
So Duck has a question.
See how I'm coming on those. What's that?
Why haven't you got a chamfer plane? And then he goes, ooh, he could build one after the table build is done.
I don't like chamfer planes. I've never seen a use for them. I mean, well, yes, I know, because I like chamfers. I should have a chamfer plane. But I actually like eyeballing chamfers. I find this to be very fun. And a chamfer plane just takes the fun out of it. So that's just my personal preference. I probably will make one sometime here in the future, but not right now. Because it doesn't really save any time for a chamfer plane. It actually ends up taking a little bit more time because you're going to be setting up the chamfer to the depth of the chamfer you want. And so, I don't know. I think it's the same reason because I don't usually use jigs for anything. I'd rather just do something freehand because the jig always ends up taking a little bit more time. And if you can learn the art of doing something freehand, it saves time, and it's fine. I find it more fun, but personal preference. But that being said, I'll probably make a chamfer plane.
The Russ, who I found out is an optician, says the pencil's for us blind folk.
Oop, wrong way. So let's put this back together and then show you guys the next step. Oh, I'm liking how this is coming together. Happiness. Okay, next step. So now we have our beam chamfered out. What we want to actually do is transfer the shape of the beam to the arm down here. Let me grab my marking knife. And so on all these other sides, I've already done it. I've marked out all the sides around, and I want to draw that line on there of where that chamfer meets the beam precisely. And that way we can carve it out. And from this point on, we're basically doing a bunch of different methods of carving here. And this is where all the fun really takes off. Here, we move over.
No pun intended.
What? Pun?
Taking off. Aren't you going to take some wood off?
Oh.
Never mind.
Okay.
Anyways, so I have a question for you.
What's that?
Tim Cheatwood asked, how do you maintain consistency in the grade of the taper on each side and from each piece?
Well, like in the thickness here, let me pull this out and show you. So you're saying a consistency in the taper from here down to here. Well, the nice thing about a plane is if you can take one smooth shaving from one end to the other, you know that it's relatively straight from point A to point B. And if you have your marks here on the end of how far in you want to cut, and you have your eyeballing spot here where you know you're going to stop, so you have your point A and your point B located, so taking a shaving from one point to the other gives you a straight line, and you know you have a taper. Anything more accurate than that, your eye will never catch, so I don't find much reason needing to be more accurate than that. So that's why I'm not like drawing a line all the way along here of what I want to plane down to. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so here's the carving point. Now I have this line drawn in here at 45 degrees where the beam intersects with it. So I'm going to start in this bevel down, staying away from the line, like right there is into the marking gauge line. I'm going to move a little bit away from it. I'm just going to push down, and I'm going to ride that bevel around the corner. Basically carving. I'm going to go a little ways farther back closer to that marking gauge line. Do the same thing again. Ride it around the bevel. And now I am into that marking gauge line. I can't get any closer. And I'm just going to ride the bevel again. Do that tiny little curl. And now I have this really nice clean shape on there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm just going to go down a little ways because if I go any farther, I'm going to be running into the grain going the opposite direction. And here, let me see if I can get this close enough. Yeah, you can see that. Here, there's about an 1/8 inch between here and here. So I know that the chamfer here is about an 1/8 inch wide, whereas up here it's about a 1/4 inch from here to here. So that means I need to go deeper in this spot to make sure that the chamfer face is about a 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to start back here and I'm just going to feather it in and go deeper and deeper and deeper until it's about a 1/4 inch wide right there. A little bit more. And I'm just going to eyeball at this point. I'll get a little bit closer a little later. But there, now it's about a 1/4 inch wide from here all the way down to there. So that's how we're basically starting this chamfer out. Now we need to actually work on feathering the chamfer from here out around to here. Now I can't use a plane on this because it's curved. So there's a couple different options I can pull out. And let me actually grab one in here. Back up. Focus. I'm going to grab a spokeshave, one of my favorite tools. And with a spokeshave, you can use it just like you would. Ooh, you can see that I'm tearing out because I'm going against the grain there. So I want to go the other direction. A spokeshave you can use basically just like a block plane. Move it up a little bit more. And do exactly the same thing you would have done with a block plane. Just feathering it until I get eyeballing about a 1/4 inch all the way down. Oop, I ran into it. Now this edge here is too tight. The radius of my spokeshave won't get into that corner. So at that point I need to grab a file or a rasp with a rounded edge. I can use that to then clean up that radius just a little bit inside. I mean, I could come in with a chisel again and freehand carve it, but a file or a rasp actually goes pretty quickly. Now let's do this surface. Any questions?
Well, Mitchell says ride the bevel is his new favorite term. And then Tom's kind of jealous that Americans have such easy access to walnut and cherry.
Yeah, there aren't. Those don't grow in Europe as much. Well, you can get, well, I mean, it's an import. You can get Peruvian walnut, which actually is very, very similar, and isn't that much more expensive. But yeah, cherry is a little bit harder to come by. There. So now we've gotten that facet and that facet. We're going to do the same thing on this side. On this side, I think I'm going to need to go this way. Since I'm talking to the camera, it takes a little bit longer. Oop, running to a bit up here. So you're always reading the wood. So I need to go this way up here, and then from here to here I need to go the other way. So constantly checking on that. Clean that file that up just a little bit more. Cool. Let me show you what that looks like. What we have so far on this. So far, we have a chamfer from this edge all the way around to here, and from this edge all the way around to here, approximately a 1/4 inch wide from here up to somewhere around here. Because this is getting tapered up by the end here, I'm actually letting it get a little smaller, because next week we're actually going to do some carving with that chamfer, so I'm not going up onto the spiral yet. So doing the insides of these is a bit tricky, but can be done. Let's actually do it on this side where we have an outside edge to chamfer, which is a little bit easier. Well, let me show you another trick before I go on with that. Is when doing the insides of these, rather than carving them with a chisel, you can just get a big rat tail. Grab a big rat tail, which is a round file that tapers down to the end, and file in that chamfer. I'm just going to eyeball it a little bit until it looks like about a 1/4 inch deep in the middle. Grab a finer file on here. There. Now I have that radius ready to work with. Just get rid of that burr by going the opposite direction. And now we're ready to actually take down this radius. Again, I'm going to grab spokeshave and make sure I go with the grain. I love that feeling. Just a couple more passes. Any questions here?
No, they're still talking about wood.
Now as I get it close, I didn't quite file enough here in this curvature, so I'm actually going to come in here with the file and blend that in from one to the other. Until I get that nice and clean. So there I've got my chamfer all the way up to here. If I run my finger along it, I can feel there's a little bit of a ridging in here. I was taking a fairly heavy cut with my spokeshave, and so I've gotten a bit of a bumpiness on there. So eventually I'm going to come back in with a card scraper, and I'm going to clean up everything on there. There we go. You hear that smooth feeling? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Love these tiny little shavings you get with a card scraper.
So Mitchell Wimberley asks, why with the grain with the spokeshave?
Because if you go against the grain, well, here's a good opportunity. From this point here, because this is curved, zoom out just a little bit, sorry about that. Because this is curved, now the grain of this wood does actually bend at this point and go that way. But because this is curved, I need to go from here down to here. Otherwise, when I go against the grain here, I'm going to be coming underneath and pulling up fibers. I'm going to be getting tear out. But then at this point, I actually want to turn around and go the opposite direction. So I'm going with the grain down here. If I was still going in this same direction over here, let's see what happens here. It tears out. See if I can zoom in close enough to show you what this tear out looks like. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it close enough here. But the tear out here is just kind of chippy here. And every time the fibers run out the end of the board, the blade is actually getting underneath and tearing out those fibers. Whereas if I turn around and come at it from the other side, then I can get a nice clean cut and slice the fibers off as opposed to going underneath it. That is going with the grain. It's one of those things that power tools won't teach you to go with or against the grain, whereas hand tools you have to listen to the grain and know which way to go. There. That looks just about right. Do a little bit more here just to feather it out. And then I can always come in with a card scraper and clean up. Give it a nice clean surface. There's that. I think I just need to do this one more surface and then we can work on the butt of the piece.
Okay,
any more questions?
Yes. So Russ asks, I have two 12-inch bow saws and on both the blade turns super easy. Is there any way to make it so they can stay in place better?
The blades spin super easy?
It turns super easy, so...
Ah, yes. Actually, I'm going to have a problem with that on one of these because this one, I think it's this one. Yeah, this one actually spins really easily. So I'm going to have to tighten that up. And you can do that with like a Loctite paste. There are a couple other ways. But I haven't found one that I really like yet. So if any of you have a good idea, please let me know. Because I'm going to be experimenting with a few of them and talking about that next time on this one. So yes, let me know. Yeah, it's actually a really interesting balance between wanting it to spin very easily and wanting it to stay tight so that it doesn't automatically turn on you. You want enough leverage on this so you can crank it around and not have to let it slide on its own. Okay, I think that about does it on this one.
And he said yes, spins, so I'm assuming you answered it.
Cool. Yeah, if anyone has any great tip on that, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be experimenting with it this week, and I will let you know next week. So now we're just going to come through here and clean these up. Playing with a card scraper is so much fun.
But how do you really feel?
Most anything with hand tool is just so much fun, so. Actually on here I've got a bit of a burr that it'll take me too long with a card scraper. So I'm going to come into the file and clean that off. Oh, here we go. Here's my file is actually getting a bit clogged up. So I'm going to use a file card and clean out the grains of the file so now it will cut like new again. So where did it go? Oh, there it is. Wrong side. There we go, nice and purty like. Let's clean that up. Get rid of those file marks. And this is about ready to go. I'm just going to be doing a good bit of this week off camera, just cleaning up all the facets before we get to carving, making sure that everything is nice and smooth and pretty. Oh yeah, we got to chamfer up the head on this. Now I did this end. What's our time? Oh, 34. Good. So on this end, I'm going to be putting a light chamfer on this corner, light chamfer on this corner, and a fairly heavy chamfer on these edges here. You can see on this one how they come out on this. That way it just kind of looks like a block on the end here. And then I'm going to do a little bit of detail carving in the end here just to give it a little bit of character in the future. So what I'm going to do for that is grab a block plane. And I got to read the grain on this. This one I think it's straight enough I can go either way. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. And I'm taking off a really thin shaving. I have this block plane currently set with a really fine shaving. I want to make sure I balance between the two, so I'll turn and look. That's about where I want. Let me back up the camera a little bit for you. Sorry about that.
I got a couple questions on you.
Okay, what you got?
All right, so I think it's rouxbeau. Sorry.
Rouxbeau?
I guess. Should you always use the file and then the card scraper for smoothness?
most of the time, yes, I'm going to use a card scraper after a file. A file, unless you get really, really fine teeth, is always going to leave a little bit of a mark on there. And so it's a personal preference, but most of the time I love the finish that I can get with a card scraper. It just allows me to clean it up nicely and easily.
What's up?
One of the kids popped in.
Can I please have some food, Mom?
Each of you get a popsicle.
Kids are always
Just
hungry
one
when they go
or
to bed
two?
for some reason.
Okay.
Okay.
I love you.
Say hi to everyone, Melody.
Hi.
Go to bed.
Okay.
Close the door. Or not.
To do the end on here, I could hold it in place and plane it off. But with the end grain, it becomes a little bit more difficult, so I find it easier to clamp it and then do the exact same thing I did before. I just want to make sure, because the grains are coming up here in the end, as I'm planing across, I want to make sure that there is a chamfer on this end to stop any tear out, because if this corner was nice and sharp, then when I plane across, I would actually break off those fibers on the end. But because there's a chamfer here, it stops those fibers from breaking off. And previously, on this particular side, I actually put a mark on the top and the side where I want the chamfer to start and stop on this one, because I don't want these ones to be eyeball. I want these ones to actually look really sharp because they're a fairly heavy chamfer. So I'm going to get down close to that line on both sides. Just eyeball it. Eyeball the line. Right about there. A couple more. And there. That gave me nice, tight shape. One more side and we're ready to go. Got any questions?
Yes. Let's see. Kuro asks, I can't find any old hand planes, only new Chinese and Stanley planes. Are the new Stanleys a decent way to go?
They are okay. For the money, I actually, let me grab mine. My low angle jack is actually one of the new Stanley Sweethearts. They work, they're not the best in the market, but for the price, they're really good. There's a few things on these that feel cheap. There's a few things that don't feel great, but functionality, they actually work pretty well. If you're having a hard time finding antique tools, definitely look at the page I just created. The video that came out, I think it was last Thursday, actually has a map, and it shows places all around the world where you can find hand tools. And you might be surprised that there might be something close to you. And if you ever find something that's not on that map, let me know and I'll put it on there so others can be helped out. Yeah, that looks about right. Right down to my line on all the sides. Make sure I got all the chamfers on there. I think we do. So, let's see how this goes. Now we have the rough shape on this all the way around. What I actually want to do is tighten it up and work on this transition just a hair. And so I'm going to put all this back together. Slide in that. Slide in that. Put on the bow. Any questions while I'm putting this together?
Let's see. Robert Oerlemans, sorry, is the card scraper made with blue steel?
It is made of a spring steel, and they have a blue coating on it that you can scratch off the blue coating, but most of the time with a card scraper you're just working the edge, so the blue coating stays fairly good. And so this is actually made by DFM Card Scraper, or DFM Toolworks, and I have these for sale on my website with the W logo. So anytime you purchase those, you are actually helping out Wood by Wright. So thank you for that. Oh, a string. Now is the fun part. We can put the string on and start twisting this sucker down with the sucker twister. Toggle, whatever you want to call it. I like sucker twister. I'm going to have to add that one to the list.
So Doc asked, what would happen if you didn't put on all the chamfers?
Then it would look funny.
Does it make it easier to handle, more comfortable?
No.
No.
I just personal preference. I like all the chamfers, so I put all the chamfers on. Now we're getting tight here. Go one more wrap. Here we go. Nice tight sound. Should do a wood band where I do that. And so now what I want to do is detail the chamfer joint between them. So I'm going to come in with a file and just joint from one onto the other and kind of feather them together. And play through all 8 of these joints. Make sure that everything is copacetic. But on yours, you can do whatever you want to do. This is your happy little place, and you can make it any way you want to make it. That's one of the things I love, is that there is no right or wrong way to do it. As long as you're doing it safe, that's all that matters. Now I'm getting a really nice clean transition from one to the other. And so I'm going to be spending a chunk of the time in between sessions. I'm just going to come through this. I'm going to do that little detail there. I'm going to be going over all these edges and surfaces with a card scraper and just cleaning them all up, getting rid of any dents or scratches, any nicks left from the file. And the card scraper will probably be the last thing. Actually, I'll probably end up hitting this with a hair of like a 400 grit sandpaper, just getting it ready for finish. Because if you work the sawdust into the grains, especially with an open pore like this, it gives it an intertesticular absorption that actually allows the wood to absorb more oil. Surprisingly, if you fill the grain with sawdust or sanding dust. So here, I'm going to leave this for later because it's going to be a lot of just little detail like that. And then we're going to be ready for carving next week. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of a scroll carving that comes through here into the beam and then up in the tops of these. So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully I'm going to be able to get all that carving done, and we'll be able to slap some boiled linseed on all that next week and get an actual look about what the finished product looks like. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm loving how this is coming out. So, yeah. Any questions?
Yes. Can Do asked, could James give some insight into the joint at the beam and frame ends to get that pivot motion? I see the rounding, but wondering what was done on the mortise or tenon.
Actually, there's a whole video on that. As I've taken a video on each step of that, so if you want to go back and take a look at that. But basically, the tenon is just a little bit sloppy in the joint so that the rounding of the surface holds it in place, and the tenon just keeps it from sliding out. And so the tenon is just a little bit sloppy. There isn't much, just like a 1/16 of an inch of movement so that the head can pivot a little bit on that joint. If you put too much in there, then this whole thing becomes a little bit wonky. But just a hair of a wobble in there, making it a loose joint is all that it really needs. But yeah, the actual curvature matching between the beam and the arm is what holds this together. So yeah. Ooh, I gotta work on that. What's next?
That's all I got for the moment.
That's it? Quiet group tonight. I guess we're on the wrong night. So normally we'll do this on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Central Time, normally. But due to my wife's work schedule, she can't always do that. So I found it yesterday. I was thinking I might just do it myself and do a live, but I find it's far more fun when my wife joins the chat. So I figured we'd bump it off a day so that she could join the chat because she had to work late last night.
Yeah. Gotta love
Really,
hospitals.
really late last night. Oh, do you guys want to see something that I'm working on? I'm hoping actually to be hitting the table this week, so that might be coming up here soon. And if you have any questions, let my wife know and she'll stop in. But I figured I would show you what we've
Test
got going
the
over
saw, Roybo says. Rubo. Can you
Oh,
put
you want me
that
to play with it?
phonetic for me in the chat?
here. I just got this, a vacuum chamber that I'm going to start doing some stabilization because I got these blanks from Tally Ho while I was out there. And they're really nice live oak, but they have a little bit of pithiness, not pithiness, but just spalting and I'd like to actually stabilize them. So I'm experimenting with this. So that will be a video upcoming here soon. So new toys. You want me to play with the saw a bit? Here, let me grab this out. Any questions while I'm setting this up?
So Kuro, I don't know if I'm saying it right, who lives in Brazil, is having a hard time finding planes.
Oh, Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any place listed on your
I don't have any
sheet?
place listed on Brazil right now.
Not yet.
Not yet. Keep an eye on it. If you find anything, let me know. I have a couple friends in Argentina that have told me to play a couple places, but they haven't shared where those are, but that doesn't help you in Brazil. But yes, I would like to get them. I don't have any place in South America right now. So if anyone has any locations down there, let me know. I do want to add them on the list. Here, let me turn on the other camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. I was playing with this the other day and trying out a couple things and was very, very happy with it. There. Camera 2. There we go. So you can see how. And the nice thing about turning saw is you get up here and it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Well, then you can actually turn the frame, and so the saw blade can turn in the cut. And there's the problem with the handle turning. Oh, this is just too much fun. Any questions?
No, I think they're all probably watching.
You can see when it's catching and I'm pulling on the board, it's actually me putting too much force into the cut. So I'm pushing on the blade, and that's often where the blades snap. I'm gonna put a little
So are you
bit more
making a
tension on it.
particular shape? I missed that.
Nope,
Or you just...
I'm just having fun.
Okay.
Let the saw do the work. Don't force the saw. Oop. Let's tighten that down a bit.
So Candu wants to know, are you cutting on the push or the pull?
I am currently cutting on the pull stroke. Different experiments with different types will provide different end results. So you may like it on the pull, you may like it on the push. I do it both ways. Why is this? Oh, that's why it's coming loose. I have junk in there. There, now let's clamp it down. My wife's laughing at me.
No, I'm laughing at the caps lock and people's spelling that make funny words.
Ding ding. So now I've got this tiny little piece that will come out. Oh, I was tipping the saw, so it only comes out one way. No, I wasn't too far off tipping the saw. It was just maybe sawdust. Now I was tipping it a little bit, so it's wedging out this way. So when I was cutting up this side of the board, my blade was actually turned in a little ways. But yeah, that is what a turning saw does. Got a fairly nice cut. Basically anything a bandsaw will do, a turning saw will do. So lots of fun. Got some really interesting ideas that I want to do with this. And someone was asking me a while ago, how big of a board can you cut with this? Well, because the blade is 12 inches, you could cut a 6-inch board. I don't think I would want to, but you can. But it was amazing what you can actually do with this. And you can get different blades, thicker widths and different sizes, even smaller ones, just like you could for a bandsaw. You can get them with this. Cool.
All right, Pickle Heart says he's looking forward to meeting you at the MWTCA meet.
Woohoo!
And then Brad's Workbench asked, who are your favorite woodworking YouTubers to watch?
Oh, man, I hate when people say that. I follow currently over 600 YouTube channels, so it's a very wide swath. I mean, there's always the normal Shannon Rogers, the Unplugged Woodworker, Paul Sellers, that are just, you know, phenomenal hand tool people. And to pick any particular one, my friend Johnny Brook, anytime he puts up a video, I love what he's doing. He does some really interesting things. I don't always watch the specifically hand tool videos because I like to broaden my aesthetic. I like to get a broader sense of what other people are doing and other channels are doing. And so I watch a lot of odd makers that are doing things like electronics or interesting carving. I've been watching a lot of stone carving and steel engraving and leather working. Alex Steele, I like watching his stuff. So there's a lot of things out there that I pick from.
You gotta give a shout out to Matt Cremona.
What's that?
You gotta give a shout out to Matt Cremona.
Oh yeah, and of course his.
It's like the only one I know.
his video that came out today about smelling wood. That was a fun one. That was it's a challenge that has been passed on to a couple different YouTube channels, and he just got it. So he actually has to. He sits down, his wife blindfolds him and forces him to smell different woods. So she's shoving wood into his face while he's blindfolded. It's a lot of fun to watch. Don't get any ideas.
You would think that would be like an awesome challenge, except you can't smell.
Yes.
Little known fact: James has a horrible nose. Great for changing baby diapers. We're past that stage, but it came in very handy.
Yes. I can't smell much and I can't taste much. So.
Yeah. You do like a broad. He likes a broad variety. If it's sciencey.
Yeah,
physics,
I watch a lot of
maker
futuristic speculation science, deep science like string theory and quantum physics. I find that fascinating. That's why I absolutely love that. So yes, I do cutting edge science and antique hand tools. Cool.
You're also got the geeky.
Yeah, I am very geeky.
Very. Pretty much.
You married me.
YouTube didn't exist, or if it did it exist when we got married? 12 years ago?
When we got married, yes. It had just come out.
Okay, so yeah. But yeah, you were a geek. You're the geek, I'm the nerd. We're a happy little couple.
Any other questions?
Oh, Pickle Heart says we want more Mrs. Wright in the future videos.
But you can't see her in the bottom 3/3?
Apparently I'm not shining enough.
No, actually, I think that once we're done with this, I'm actually going to be doing a couple videos with her and teaching her some of the woodworking. So I'll actually be the person pointing the camera and showing her, and she can be experimenting with it. And so it'll be kind of a fun opportunity.
We will not have the correct terms. It'll be this thingy going to this thingy.
Yes. Hey, I don't use correct terms anyway, so. Yeah, so that about does it. Go get all these chisel, and they make, one of the reasons why I always pick up a bunch of sets is not because I need any more, but because I find these are great starter chisels, and so I often give them to people who are getting started in woodworking and like, I don't have any tools, where can I find them? It's a great set. I can ship them out to someone, or I can give them away as a prize, or I can make someone's day happy. So yeah, pick some up, make someone happy. And I'm looking forward to seeing those of you at the Midwest Tool Collectors later this month. And yeah. So, anything else?
No.
Cool. Well, that about does it. And until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Now there's the phone game.
I know.
Find
And
the
then a
button.
question
Where's the
came
button?
up. And where's the button? There's the button.